Ethan had been working security for 3 years, and he liked the solitude of the night shift. No crowds, no noise, just long, quiet hours with a thermos of coffee and the glow of his flashlight to keep him company. His post was an old wing of the hospital, one that had been closed down for renovations. The place was unsettling even in the daytime. The walls were cracked and peeling, doors hung slightly off their hinges, and abandoned wheelchairs stood in the shadows like patient ghosts. At night, though, it was worse. The silence seemed alive, pressing in from every corner. Most nights, Ethan made his rounds without incident. But one night, in particular, has haunted him ever since. It began just after 2 in the morning. He was halfway down the main corridor when he saw something strange. A wheelchair sat squarely in the middle of the hallway. He could have sworn he had pushed it aside earlier. Thinking little of it, he rolled it back against the wall and continued. Half an hour later, on his return pass, the wheelchair had moved again. This time it sat angled toward him, as if waiting. The air grew heavier after that. Every sound seemed sharper, every shadow deeper. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't alone. At 3 o'clock, the sound began. Faint, distant, but unmistakable. The soft, pitiful crying of a child. He froze where he stood, his pulse hammering in his ears. There were no children in this wing, no patients at all. The crying drew him forward, pulling him past one door after another, until he reached the very last room at the end of the corridor. The door stood half open. From inside, the crying grew louder, echoing through the empty space. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was pitch black. His flashlight beam cut across bare floors and peeling wallpaper. There was no furniture, no bed, no child, and yet the crying filled the room until it stopped. Silence fell the moment he entered, as if the sound had never existed at all. Then something brushed against his shoulder. A rush of cold air, quick and deliberate, like someone passing by him in the dark. Ethan spun around, his light slicing through the shadows. No one. Nothing. The door stood open behind him, and he moved quickly toward it. But the instant he crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut with a deafening crack. His hands trembled as he fumbled with the knob, wrenching it open to escape into the hallway. He didn't look back. He couldn't. Later that night, shaken, he told his supervisor what had happened. The woman listened quietly, her face pale, and then admitted what he hadn't known. That wing had once been the children's ward, shut down decades ago after a fire killed several young patients. Few spoke of it openly, but almost every guard who worked nights in that section had their own story. Some had heard laughter, others swore they'd seen small figures darting at the end of the hall. And more than one had heard the same thing Ethan did, children crying in the dark. Ethan stayed on the job after that night, but he refused to walk those halls alone again. Even now, years later, he can still feel that cold touch on his shoulder. He can still hear the crying echoing in the dark. And when people ask him what it's like working the graveyard shift, he always answers the same way. You don't just fight exhaustion. You fight the feeling that you're not alone.